next drink is cider! Hooray! So, what sessions did you go to today?
I went to a real estate review. Really interesting because you talked about trends as well. That has made me really excited to start looking at real estate trends, once again, internationally.
Yay!
I was like, okay, what's happening in this country in real estate?
Did you go into, like, California Prop 13 at all?
Yes, she did.
I have forgotten what that is. Can you please reiterate?
I feel like I should put on a tweed jacket.
Tweed.
Prop 13 is a law in California which has several components, real estate-wise, and the main thrust of it is that real estate, once it has been assessed, will not be reassessed again until it is going to be sold. If you pass away and it's going to be passed on to your children, say, if it is not in trust, it will be reassessed, and then your children are responsible for that price
for the new property taxes.
Exactly.
So it's interesting. You should bring up you know, the talk of inheritance because one of the sessions that I went to today was researching old money. I have been really annoyed ever since Ancestry.com kind of acquired the Social Security Death Index, because I love the Social Security Death Index. Yay, Death Index. Incidentally, fun story, Benjamin, my boyfriend, is currently at this conference with his mother and grandmother. So while I'm at this convention, Benjamin is in Minnesota at this other convention about his, you know, glorious ancestor.
Wow.
That his grandmother was presenting at.
Wow.
So, because she's like a genealogist and she's written like 2 books about this guy.
Huh.
So he texts me last night saying, hey, I'm learning a lot about genealogy and it sounds like it's kind of up your alley. You know, did you know that about this, you know, death index thing? And I was like, the SSDI? Yeah, I do.
One of my other sessions was actually on building family trees, which was interesting. So we talked a lot about genealogy resources.
Both this session as well as the session that you went to on family trees, I always end up with sort of mixed feelings about, because it tends to sort of, it tends to speak to a very specific kind of experience. Which tends to be white, male, and Anglo-Saxon. A lot of the, you know, sort of issues with, you know, the American sort of immigrant experience of, you know, people whose last names get anglicized, people who, you know, are, you know, there's a lot of refugee stuff that's going on, where, you know, people come from countries where, you know, records aren't just as widely kept. And so I sometimes kind of give the side eye to a lot of sort of genealogy type things, and I really wish that they had addressed that a bit more.
It was something too I was hoping for. There are some questions along that line. Really the only way I've used genealogy is trying to understand a family that often is a family business. It's less about the long-ranging family relationships and more about, okay, who is immediately has a relationship with us and a relationship to each other. If you have families that have had long relationships with each other too, you know, come from the same town, they've been on the same boards, they've supported the same foundations, etc., 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 it wouldn't make sense to ignore that.
When you're talking about solicitations and things like that, doing something, you know, especially when you're talking about like recognition and naming opportunities, coming up with some kind of legacy that really brings your 2 families together.
Absolutely. And I think recognizing cultural differences too and how people think of family. I mean,
yeah.
I have an anthropology background and it makes me so excited. I actually got to use kinship terms.
So American companies, I've noticed, tend to, like even on their company website, go into the history. Like it's a thing that they want to talk about, and how they've been family owned for generations, since the, you know, olden times of 1931.
Right, back in the day.
This comes up for me in international research. It's when researching Indian companies. And it's almost, to some extent, almost taken as a given that you would know this. Like, why do we have to tell you? Like, it's this family.
Right.
Duh.
It gets into some of the most basic ideas about philanthropy, too, and gift giving, and the idea of, you know, family's generosity and both the relationship of family members to each other, the relationship this family has with its community.
Philanthropy in India does tend to be, at least sort of traditionally, you give to your community. You are, in a sense, a patron of those around you. And also, I mean, talking about family, like, it is sort of seen part as almost like family obligation, right?
Yes, very much so. And I mean, in similar ways here, too. There's a branch of my family that's had a long relationship with Notre Dame. An Italian Catholic family. They've had several, members that went to the school, had a long-term relationship, and gave to the, the institution,
and it's
it was
part of your, and it's sort of part of almost like your family narrative.
Exactly.
Is this institution?
And this institution, in some ways, becomes a family member. The other one I went to that I really, really enjoyed was building a proactive research powerhouse. The presenter, Daniel Gifford, who is at the Smithsonian. The premise of his presentation was, these are things that absolutely anyone can do to be more proactive, no matter what your resources are, no matter what your size is.
I don't have time to do proactive research. It's a common complaint, in prospect research. And I feel like the blame often goes on to, well, it's not my fault that I don't have time to do proactive research. It's these other people's fault, because they don't know.
I liked how he talked a lot about opportunity cost. I could update these profiles, or I could do 2 hours of proactive research. And if I don't do those 2 hours of proactive research, what is that costing my institution?
This actually dovetails nicely into the session that I went to this afternoon, which is all about metrics. Because metrics are the sorts of things that you can use to make your case for, the value of the time that you're spending on proactive research.
Right. On all the sessions, I kept thinking about our keynote speaker and the idea of, how does this feed into your belief system, and how does this feed
God,
into
I wish I went to that keynote.
Always coming back to, is this pushing it forward, or is this holding us back?
There's some APRA sessions that get derailed when people decide that what they would rather do, rather than asking, say, constructive questions or things like that, what they would really like to do is just complain about their gift officers. And it sort of creates this somewhat toxic environment where it's, the researchers versus the gift officers.
Right.
And that's not helping anyone. We're on the same team, guys. Yes. Are the gift officers on the researchers' team? Are the researchers on the gift officers' team? No. Those teams don't exist. Are we on the organization's team? Yeah. That's the team that matters.
Well, the best quote from the genealogy session was about doing genealogy research and not getting discouraged. And okay, I'm going through these obituaries and things are misspelled, or they're, the information wasn't transferred to the database, et cetera, et cetera. Like, well, they can run, they can die, but they can't hide. Genealogy.
We're not creepy, we promise.
We're not
Non-researchers, we promise we're not creepy.
We're not creepy, no.
We love you.
We love you.
All of you.
All of you.
Bye, nerds!